Hello, my name is Alan Boyer. I'm with A&A Technology Partner. In this session, I want to talk about large XML files with business logic and how to export this data out into Microsoft Excel using Visual Basic. I had a process for over the last few years, 10 years, where I manipulate the data that's in the Symantec Identity Management solution to look at business rules. There could be anywhere from 100 to 5 to 800 rules I've seen. And it gets very convoluted and complex trying to go through these business rules of how they flow. And as an example, here you can see I have a large file that has over 250,000 rows. I've got an example here. The objects would be actually called Policy Express. They're basic if-then logic rules that business rules that operate off of an event, whether the event started by a user within a browser or if it's exposed as a web service. Since my knowledge with Visual Basic is getting old and the code was legacy, I was having issues with truncated code and not doing the displays I wanted to speed up my process to get my tool working with later releases out there. And what I found very useful was ChatGPT. And I would leverage it as my really smart resource. It's not very wise. It will make mistakes. It doesn't get you where you want to unless you guide it. So you can think of yourself as the architect guiding your junior resource to give you the format that you're looking for. So as just a quick, fresh reminder, data can be presented in 3 formats for a lot of tools. As input or exports, there's the common separated value systems, just standard data separated by a comma, or it could be other characters as well. The later version that was used in industry is XML, and it's still used by quite a few tools as more of a human readable format of the same data being represented. And the latest format that's very popular with Kubernetes and other systems is really you can see it's kind of a mix of the two above, but it reduces the size of what the XML file was. So this file started getting very, very large when you're manipulating data across the wire. This streamed it down quite a bit. Get rid of some of the redundancy that was there. We're working with a file that uses XML as its exports business logic, and it's fairly large. You can see I've got a file over here. It's 12. I've seen 20, 40 meg, which gets up to about 500,000 to 750,000 rows. It's not something you want to go through visually. You could use Notepad++ and go through it, but you definitely don't want to. So what I have in play, let me open my spreadsheet here. And if you don't have it already enabled, you can go to File, down here in the very left, go down to Options, click under Customize Ribbon, and over in the far right, scroll down, and you'll see a option to select Developer. It won't be checked on by default. Just go ahead and click it and say OK. And then you'll see Developer at the very top. And also within View, you'll see a macros section over here that'll list any business logic that the macros you've got where we'll manipulate the business logic. And I got a series of ones here. To actually see this code, go back to Developer, just say View Code. You will see over in the left panel your sheets you have open, and you'll see a section called Modules. If I double click on the modules, you'll see these macros, this Visual Basic code. Now again, my knowledge is dated. It's been several years before I've manipulated this. I've forgotten quite a bit, but I wanted to leverage what I had and just change it. So what I started doing was copying this raw format and started asking leading questions. So I went into ChatGPT, and here I'll just show you the flow that I started. I said, just explain to me each step that I have for my order code. And I had some remarks in there about what I was trying to do manually. And it walked through this and actually gave me a nice description of what was being done in the pre-processing steps and while I was looping through the raw data. So it was great. So it was giving me a nice review. And I said, well, I have an issue with me running it when it wasn't working quite right. I was truncating data, and I was trying to figure out why I was truncating data. Well, it came back that the reason why I was truncating it because the worksheets in Microsoft Excel, they're limited to about 31 characters. So I was truncating the data, the worksheet names, to fit that. But I inadvertently was truncating the data inside the cells as well, which was causing my if string A equals string B process to fail. So I said, point this out to me. Where's it doing that? And it pointed out exactly where the issue was. I said, well, go ahead and update that line for me for the full length. Just something very open, clear text like you would get to somebody to mention, and it actually removed that information. And I thought, well, let's just be more cognizant of what's going on. So check for any truncated process. Now, what I did here was I pasted it again because what I've noticed with the ChatGPT and other ones, it doesn't have any history awareness of what you're working on. It may be able to look in the session that you're in, but it doesn't 100% that it will still give you the same code that you're working on. It will slightly manipulate it sometimes without you asking. So to make sure it's working on the same code that you're looking at is to paste it back in of the section. And if you paste in too large, it'll complain on some of these engines here. They want to make it very short. So I asked it to look at this data and go through it. And it found that there was only two areas. One was the sheet and one was the actual task name, which is the one we wanted fixed. But we left this one to be a max length of 31 characters, which will fit within the worksheet limit name. And then I went through, it says, I asked a question about how do I prevent the screens from flashing on my monitor when it's generating all these worksheets. And it did provide a nice little process to do that for me. I can turn it off and then turn it back on again. So this was a great way. And I kept adding the scripts back and forth and just kept asking questions to get the format. And I wanted colors added. I wanted it to change the filtering. So you can see through this, I went through it several times. So back and forth, back and forth. So let me show you what it looks like. So inside the Visual Basic module here, I've got step 1. It reopens the XML file that I'll have the user selected. It'll then generate the worksheet with these as the header. And then I have it go even deeper. I said, ignore any object that's not these two types, email export and policy express export. I don't care about the other ones. There's other business logic in there called data policies, but I'm not focused on those right now. I'm looking at just these two. And then I have to have it dive in deeper because the XML data that's inside is actually inside a section called CData, which makes it more of a binary type format. What makes it, most tools have a challenge. And let me just show that. So there will be a section called CData right here, which makes anything underneath that bracket very difficult for most XML tools to sort through. But with Visual Basic Code or any other scripting code, you got the flexibility that you can get past those limitations. And then I have a few banners pop up for myself. So, and I've got a few functions to go deeper that I, again, did not generate these. This is ChatGPT going back and forth to give me exactly what I was asking for out as well. So I've got step 2, sort, step 3 down here, filter, and then step 4, this is where I actually want the visual representation of the business logic. So let's show this. Let me go ahead and close that. Let me go to view and then click on macros here and say, I'm going to run step 1, which also we'll call step 2, 3, and 4 is the way I've had it set up. And I can clean up my pages after I'm done as well. Those are all individually, I can run those. So click run. I'm going to pick a sample one that I have just to show how quickly it is. This one takes just a little longer because I've got about 500 plus rules in that one. And I have pop-ups just to let me know if there's an issue with any part of the Visual Basic Code. And this one, of course, is where it takes a little longer if I have quite a few rules in there it needs to churn through. And I'll just answer OK on all those. So now I have raw data that it ripped out of the XML in a nice format that I can filter on. I can find out what rules are truly enabled, true, false, what category they're in, what kind of fire event they have, and if there's any description. And then I've got it where it's filtered out in these other tabs. Now the value that I like of this is I can take my template that I had, populate the task name, and if there's a PX rule that fired during a certain event, I can now see these. So what value this gives me, if there's an issue with a certain business rule, I can now isolate it when it happens and where it's happening. So this was in a process how to take a large solutions XML file to sort it with Visual Basic within Microsoft Excel and then give it a nice spreadsheet that you could give to any management, auditor, or administrator user to leverage to go through the logic. This is very useful when you clean up old business logic or find out what the flow is as well. Another value feature, of course, is if once you start finding what these are being, how they're flowing, you can tie some of your ROI metrics to how often these events are being called to get a nice number of events per hour, per day, per month, so you can see how the solution is being utilized. That concludes the session. Thank you very much.